Ever wondered what jobs medieval women could actually do? Was your history teacher lying to you this whole time? Did women in the Middle Ages really just sit around waiting to be rescued from towers? Number 9. The brewing business, from female domain to male monopoly. Did you know beer was once considered women's work? In the early Middle Ages, brewing was primarily a female occupation. These women, known as alewives or brewsters, dominated the industry, brewing beer in their homes as part of their household duties. Beer wasn't just a fun drink back then. It was a daily necessity, safer than water. Alewives would hang a broom above their door to signal fresh brew was available, creating what were essentially the first pubs. They'd sell their surplus beer to neighbors and travelers, often becoming important breadwinners for their families. Archaeological evidence from medieval settlements consistently shows brewing equipment in areas associated with women's work. But here's where things got complicated. As brewing became more profitable in the 13th and 14th centuries, men started muscling in. Brewing guilds formed, and surprise, they often excluded women. These male-dominated guilds established rules and regulations that made it increasingly difficult for women to continue brewing commercially. They required expensive equipment and formal apprenticeships that were largely closed to women. By the late Middle Ages, what had begun as a female-dominated cottage industry had transformed into a male-controlled commercial enterprise. The few women who maintained their brewing businesses faced skepticism and sometimes even accusations of witchcraft. That broom hanging outside their door became associated with witches in popular imagination. Talk about a professional downgrade. Number 8. Silk workers and weavers. The thread that tied women to commerce. Ever touched silk and wondered about its journey to your fingertips? In medieval Europe, particularly in Italy and France, silk production was an industry where women not only participated, but excelled. Cities like Florence, Venice, and Lyon became centers of silk production, with women forming the backbone of this lucrative trade. The process of silk making involved incredibly detailed steps, unwinding delicate threads from cocoons, spinning, dyeing, and weaving. Women's supposedly nimble fingers made them perfect for this work, according to male guild masters. Records from 14th century Venice show women dominated the silk throwing industry, the process of twisting silk threads together. What made silk work unique was that it provided opportunities for women across social classes. Noble women might invest in silk ventures, middle-class women could run workshops, and working-class women found employment as skilled laborers. In Lyon, France, by the late Middle Ages, women made up nearly 80% of silk workers. Yet this female-dominated industry wasn't free from gender restrictions. While women did the actual production work, men controlled the merchant end, selling and trading the finished goods. Women rarely advanced to the highest levels of the silk guilds and often earned less than their male counterparts for identical work. Still, silk production remained one of the few industries where women could find legitimate skilled employment throughout the Middle Ages. The silk industry created a paradox. It simultaneously provided women with economic opportunities while reinforcing gender limitations. But those limitations didn't stop some exceptional women from becoming wealthy through silk work or passing their businesses down through generations of daughters. Number 7. Midwifery, the original women's health specialists. Who delivered babies before hospitals existed? For centuries, childbirth was exclusively women's territory. Midwives weren't just delivery nurses. They were the complete pregnancy package. Gynecologists, obstetricians, doulas, and pediatric nurses all rolled into one. Medieval midwives came from all walks of life. Some learned through apprenticeship, others through personal experience, after having several children. What united them was their comprehensive knowledge of herbal remedies, birthing techniques, and women's health. They knew which herbs induced labor, eased pain, or prevented infection. They understood how to turn a breech baby and manage complicated deliveries without modern equipment. Their role extended far beyond childbirth. Midwives advised on fertility issues, contraception, and general women's health concerns. They performed as community healers, particularly for ailments men physicians wouldn't treat due to modesty concerns. Their wisdom was so valued that in many European regions, midwives received official licenses from local authorities or the church. But by the late Middle Ages, midwives faced increasing scrutiny. As universities developed medical schools, which excluded women, male physicians began claiming authority over areas traditionally managed by women healers. Midwives found themselves navigating complicated religious and political waters. The church expected midwives to perform emergency baptisms for dying infants and sometimes questioned their use of pain-relieving herbs during childbirth, citing the biblical curse that women should bear children in pain. Yet, despite these challenges, midwifery remained firmly in female hands throughout the Middle Ages, one of the few medical professions women could openly practice without significant male interference. Number 6. Merchants and traders. The market women who beat the odds. Could a woman run a business in medieval Europe? Absolutely, if she could navigate the complex legal restrictions designed to limit her. Despite numerous obstacles, women merchants and traders operated throughout medieval Europe, particularly in urban centers. The most common path to merchant status for women was through marriage or widowhood. A merchant's widow could inherit his business and trading rights, and many widows successfully maintained and even expanded their late husband's enterprises. Records from 14th century London show widows running businesses ranging from fishmongers to goldsmiths. But it wasn't just widows making their mark. Unmarried women and wives whose husbands were absent due to travel or illness also stepped into commercial roles. In areas like Flanders and northern Italy, where textile industries thrived, women frequently operated as independent traders of cloth and finished garments. The archaeological and documentary evidence is clear. Women were active in marketplaces across medieval Europe. They sold everything from food and drink to textiles, household goods, and luxury items. In many towns, certain market sections were dominated by women vendors like the fishwives of Paris or the market women of German towns who specialized in dairy and poultry. However, female merchants operated under significant restrictions. Most guilds, the professional organizations that regulated trade, limited female membership or excluded women entirely. Women often lacked the legal right to represent themselves in commercial courts. And in many regions, married women could not enter contracts without their husband's consent. Despite these barriers, creative and determined women found ways to participate in commerce. Some operated under special licenses granted by local authorities. Others worked in partnership with male relatives or specialized in trades less regulated by guilds. The most successful women traders accumulated substantial wealth and property, demonstrating that while the deck was stacked against them, medieval women could and did thrive in commercial ventures. Number 5. Religious life, nuns, abbesses, and the power behind prayers. What happened to women who didn't want to marry in the Middle Ages? For many, the answer was religious life. Convents provided one of the few socially acceptable alternatives to marriage, and the role of nun offered women opportunities unavailable elsewhere in medieval society. Unlike modern perceptions of nuns as isolated from society, Medieval nunneries were often dynamic centers of female power and influence. Abbesses, women who led major convents, controlled vast estates, supervised large staffs, managed financial affairs, and sometimes wielded political authority comparable to male lords. Famous abbesses like Hildegard of Bingen, 1098 to 1179, exemplified the potential reach of female religious leadership. Hildegard wrote theological works, composed music, created her own language, advised popes and emperors, and even publicly preached an activity usually forbidden to women. Convents served as centers of female education in an era when formal learning was largely closed to women. Nuns produced beautiful, illuminated manuscripts, composed music and literature, and maintained medical knowledge. Many convents specialized in particular arts or skills, textiles, manuscript production, or healing practices. Religious life wasn't equally accessible to all women. Most convents required substantial entrance donations, making them primarily available to daughters of noble or wealthy merchant families. Yet they still represented a rare space where women could exercise authority, pursue intellectual interests, and live in female-centered communities. The power of abbesses declined somewhat in the later Middle Ages as male church authorities increasingly sought to control female religious houses. However, convents remained important spaces of female autonomy throughout the medieval period, providing opportunities for leadership and intellectual growth unavailable in secular society. Number 4. Peasant labor. The unsung heroines of medieval economy. What would happen to medieval society if women stopped working the fields? Complete collapse. The largest female workforce in the Middle Ages consisted of peasant women whose essential agricultural labor kept everyone alive, yet their contributions often go unrecognized in history books. Medieval manorial records reveal that women performed nearly every agricultural task alongside men. They plowed fields, harvested crops, tended livestock, processed food, and managed household gardens. During harvest time, entire families, including women and children, worked from dawn until dusk, gathering crops that would sustain their communities through winter. The famous medieval illuminated manuscript Tres Riches, Years du Duc de Berry, depicts women harvesting alongside men, confirming their central role in agricultural production. Archaeological evidence from peasant dwellings shows that women's work areas contained tools for both domestic and agricultural activities, blurring the line between women's work and men's work. Beyond field labor, peasant women specialized in dairy production, poultry raising, brewing, and textile production. These activities generated crucial income for peasant households. A woman's cheesemaking or egg selling often provided the cash needed for taxes or to purchase essential items the family couldn't produce. During planting and harvest seasons, women balanced intensive field work with continued responsibility for childcare, food preparation, and household management. Their workdays typically started before dawn and continued after sunset, encompassing an exhausting range of physical tasks. Despite their essential contributions, peasant women received little recognition and held minimal legal rights. Their labor was considered less valuable than men's, even when performing identical tasks. Yet, without women's agricultural work, the entire feudal economic system which supported nobles, clergy, and townspeople would have collapsed. Medieval society literally survived on the backs of female peasant labor. Number 3. Textile production. Spinning, the threads of medieval economy. Why do we call unmarried women spinsters? The answer lies in the medieval textile industry, where women dominated spinning, transforming raw wool or flax into thread and yarn. This vital economic activity employed more women than any other craft in medieval Europe. From noble ladies to peasant girls, virtually all women spun. The ubiquitous distaff and spindle became symbols of femininity across social classes. A woman could spin while supervising children, walking to market, or even attending social gatherings. This productive multitasking allowed women to contribute economically while fulfilling their domestic responsibilities. Beyond spinning, women participated in multiple stages of textile production. They combed and carded wool, wove fabric on home looms, embroidered decorative elements, and created finished garments. In urban centers, professional female weavers worked alongside male colleagues in textile workshops. The economic significance of women's textile work was enormous. Cloth production represented one of medieval Europe's largest industries, with exports from Flanders, Italy, and England reaching markets throughout Europe and beyond. Women's spinning created the thread foundation for this massive commercial enterprise. However, as textile production commercialized in the later Middle Ages, gender divisions intensified. While spinning remained female-dominated, the higher-paid weaving positions increasingly excluded women, particularly in urban guilds. The invention of the spinning wheel, and later the mechanical loom, gradually transformed women's home-based textile work into male-dominated factory production. Despite these shifts, textile work provided crucial income for countless medieval women. For widows and unmarried women, especially, spinning and related textile crafts offered economic survival in a society where independent female livelihoods were severely limited. The now derogatory term, spinster, originally simply identified a woman by her profession, like calling someone a baker or smith. Number 2. Healing arts. Medieval medicine women, who tended the sick before modern medicine. While male university-trained physicians attended the elite, the vast majority of medieval health care came through women's hands. These women healers, rarely acknowledged in official medical histories, provided essential medical services throughout medieval Europe. Female healers operated at multiple levels. Some worked as general practitioners for their villages, treating everything from broken bones to fevers. Others specialized in particular areas. Herbalists created medicines from plants. Bone setters repaired injuries, and empirics treated specific conditions through traditional methods passed down through generations of women. Their medical knowledge was impressive. Analysis of medieval herbals and remedy collections shows sophisticated understanding of plant properties and dosages. Archaeological evidence reveals women's healing kits containing surgical tools, herbs, and materials for creating salves and potions. Court records document women called to testify as medical experts in cases of suspicious death or injury. Women healers filled crucial gaps in medieval healthcare. They provided medical attention in areas without male physicians, treated patients who couldn't afford doctors' fees, and addressed women's health issues that male practitioners often avoided due to modesty concerns. Many combined practical treatments with prayer and ritual healing, addressing their patients' spiritual and emotional needs alongside physical ailments. However, women healers faced growing challenges as the Middle Ages progressed. The establishment of male-only medical schools created a division between formal and informal medicine, with women increasingly restricted to the latter. By the late medieval period, women practicing medicine without guild approval or university training risked accusations of charlatanism or even witchcraft. Despite these obstacles, women continued providing essential health care throughout the Middle Ages. Their remedies, preserved in household manuals and books of secrets, influenced official medicine and formed the foundation for many modern pharmaceutical treatments. These unsung healers kept medieval communities alive through plague, war, and everyday illnesses, using knowledge transmitted from mother to daughter across generations. Number 1. Prostitution, the necessary evil of medieval urban life. When did prostitution become a licensed profession? In many medieval European cities, sex work operated as a regulated occupation with official sanction. This created one of history's paradoxes. A profession simultaneously condemned by religious authorities, yet licensed by civic governments. Urban prostitution, in medieval Europe, often followed a structured system. Many cities designated specific streets or districts where prostitutes could legally operate, complete with regulations on their clothing, behavior, and working hours. In larger cities like London, Paris, and Florence, municipal brothels operated under city supervision with prostitutes paying taxes and submitting to regular health inspections. What led women to this stigmatized profession? Poverty drove many. Orphan girls, abandoned wives, and widows often had few other options for survival. Records from 15th century Dijon show that over 65% of registered prostitutes were migrants from rural areas seeking urban livelihoods. Others entered prostitution after being victims of assault or seduction that left them ruined for respectable marriage. Medieval attitudes toward prostitution were deeply contradictory. While church teachings condemned sexual commerce, many religious and civic authorities viewed regulated prostitution as a necessary evil that protected respectable women from male desire. St. Thomas Aquinas compared prostitution to a sewer that, though unpleasant, prevented worse contamination of society. The working conditions varied dramatically. Elite courtesans serving wealthy merchants or nobility might enjoy comfortable living standards and significant independence. In contrast, brothel workers often faced exploitation, violence, and debt bondage to brothel keepers. Most prostitutes occupied a middle ground, neither luxurious nor completely destitute, but living precariously on society's margins. By the late Middle Ages, Reformation movements increasingly targeted prostitution, closing municipal brothels and criminalizing practices previously tolerated. This transition reduced women's already limited economic options while driving sex work underground. The once semi-legitimate occupation became fully criminalized, increasing risks for women who had few alternative survival strategies. Did medieval women really have professional options beyond being wives and mothers? The archaeological and documentary evidence shows they absolutely did, though always within complex systems of gender restrictions that limited their autonomy and earnings. What other historical facts about women's lives might be completely wrong?